Hey everybody, what's up, man? It's hold the truth hostage. Where if the truth was so important, we wouldn't negotiate with lies. Now, the reason I'm streaming this early is that an idea hit me, man. Oh, David, what's good, man? What's up, brother? God damn, this lady can't drive. Come on, man. Yeah, yeah. What's up, David? But yeah, I was thinking about something, man, and you know, what hit me, yeah, what hit me is that, I plan to do a stream later today on, the rampant amount of, men deleting themselves, men taking themselves out. I plan to do that later today. It won't be a very long stream, but basically, you know. This stream really, I woke up and I thought about it. I thought about what's going on with the war. With the war going on. The war with the religious war with with I don't know if I can even say it. With the war. Well, yeah, I guess I can. Yeah, with the war going on with you know is Israel and you know the Palestine. I think what's gonna happen, and I covered this on a previous stream. I covered this on God is Grift stream, but I'm gonna go into more detail because a lot of people don't understand that you know that that this is basically gonna lead to religious Armageddon. You know what I'm saying? Religious Armageddon. As in religion itself is basically at an end. And at first, I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, what's gonna come after? What's gonna come after religion? What's gonna come after religion? And what will people do? After after religion. What is next? You know what I'm saying? What is next for people when they no longer find comfort in religion? And how can we learn something from what happened during the war in Iraq? The war in Iraq, what happened? Now, I spoke about it before, but basically, I think the war in Iraq, when that war ended, it led to a lot of people becoming hipsters. You know what I'm saying? Becoming hipsters. It created a whole new group of people that found more value in the past than the present. A lot more people found more stability in the past than the present. So I think after the war in Israel, and I think after the war in Israel and what's happened with the war in Iraq, where a lot of younger generations, or millennials such as myself, a lot of them gave up nationalism. A lot of people looked at their nationality and said, you know what? Because even when the war in Iraq happened, there was a lot of people against it because a lot of people saw the war in Iraq as basically the second coming of the Vietnam War. A lot of people saw it like that, and a lot more people were far more educated and had far more access to, education on a global scale than during Vietnam, because during Vietnam, you didn't have as much technology as you had during during like we got today, you know. So let me see it. Put the audio on. Hopefully the audio is clearer. But basically what happened is, you know, after the war in Vietnam, a lot of Americans saw, man, it was for ulterior motives, and you got, like the homie David said, PTSD and so on. People saw it as ulterior motives, man. Why were we there? The most powerful nation in the world. What was the point of Vietnam? What was the point? So was it a truly a threat for our country? And what that created, and look at it, what that created was more of the hipster, not the hipster, but you got the hippie. You had the hippie culture explode. You know what I'm saying? It exploded, I think, after Vietnam. It went even more mainstream. The whole peace, weed, smoking, stoners, enjoying life and all that. A lot of that increased. A lot of that increased after, I think, the war in Vietnam. So you had a whole entire counterculture. And if you look at the hippie movement, a lot of those hippies were all about living more off the land. You know what I'm saying? Living more off the land rather than the corporate structure of America. You know what I'm saying? Rather than the corporate and capitalistic culture of America, with the hippies, you had them moving more towards living off the land and a natural existence. And if you look at the hippie culture, in my opinion, you know what I'm saying, it's a lot closer to, because I got to do a study on paganism, because a lot of people are against paganism, and if you look at paganism and you're like, a lot of that is built on, the natural aspect and getting in touch with some levels of spirituality. I'm not saying it was all good and all that, but it had more of a nature aspect to it. And I think what happened after the war in Vietnam, you saw the hippies. Yeah, like the homie David saying, it transformed the 70s. You had more of a drug culture, more psychedelics, and so on. When the hippies got in touch, the hippies, the hippies looked for power, relief, and God damn it, they look for power and relief, and in nature, nature, some the drugs and stuff. Saw that with Vietnam. And then you see the war in Iraq. When the war in Iraq happened, a lot of people left their nationalism. That's actually when you saw the birth. And think about it. We had the hippies after Vietnam, and then we end up having the end up having the hipsters after the war in Iraq. You know what I'm saying? After the war in Iraq, we end up with you know we end up with the hipsters, and God damn, man, I left early in these motherfuckers. We end up with the hipsters after the war in Iraq, and a lot of Americans, basically looked away from nationalism. They started looking at nationalism as basically propaganda. You know what I'm saying? As a way to militarize the the American public, and the American public started looking at nationalism as basically a blindfold. You know what I'm saying? They started looking at nationalism as a blindfold for you to just support whatever the government wants to do without any thoughts, without any thoughts at all. And that's why you got the hipster movement. And the hipster movement has a lot of it's affected culture more than anybody wants to admit. More than anybody wants to admit what the hipster culture has actually achieved in America. Because if you look at the hipsters, which were more focused, unlike the hippies, the hipsters were more focused on, you know, culture, technology from the past that they could actually control and enjoy. The hipsters were all about, man, we can only control and depend on the past. The hipsters became more dependent on the past rather than the present. The hipsters saw the past as far more honest. The past is far more honest than the present and the future, because the past, you at least know everything that happens and you can find out. Like, if I look at the 90s and I'm like, what was the highest selling fashion? What was the biggest cultural moments? What happened in the 90s? I can actually find that out, and nothing's going to change. You know what I'm saying? The 90s can't change. What happened in the 90s stays in the 90s, So the hipster movement happened, and what happened is that the public looked, when it came to the hipster public, the public looked at it and said, man, I lost my uncle. I lost my family members during the war in Iraq. We lost family, what I'm saying? We lost loved ones who fought for the nation and the country. And then you look at the politicians and what they pushed after the war in Iraq. What I'm saying? It just became very tribalistic and anti-American. A lot of politicians really became anti-American. You know, After 9/11, god damn, man, the fucking looks like the traffic sign is fucked up. You know what I mean? Yeah. So a lot of Americans, man, after the war in Iraq, started looking at it. And you look at who became our president after the war in Iraq, it was, Obama. So, we got 8 years of Bush, you know what I'm saying? 8 years of, the war never ending. We're going to pull out. We're going to leave. And, it never happened. You know what I'm saying? It never fully happened. You know, fuck, man. Never fully happened. And then you look at what happened with Obama. Obama passed a lot of cultural propagandist driven laws. You know what I'm saying? The family, and think about it. We talk about this a lot a lot. I think especially here, we speak a lot about the family and the worth of the family. But when you look at what somebody like Obama did, you know what I'm saying? You look at Obama and you look at the war in Iraq, you're like, man, it was families that got together. A lot of people lost family members that went to war for this nation. And then you look at the laws Obama passed, and the laws were more focused on the destruction of the family, you know, and it was not about reconstruction of the family at all. You didn't see the laws in the family court change for the better. It got worse. Under Obama, a lot of cultural and propaganda aspects were passed. to further benefit the destruction of the family. You know what I'm saying? Obama didn't remove a lot of laws that targeted, you know, Americans due to race, ethnicity, and, you know, living standards and so on. A lot of the laws became, well, you know, I think under Obama, you could correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it under Obama the don't tell, don't tell or whatever was removed? You know, under Obama, a lot of benefits came towards the psychological destruction of the American public because a lot of the laws that were passed were more anti normal than they were towards benefiting the reconstruction of the family. So a lot of people that were stepping away from it, and think about all the protests that happened. Some of them I don't remember what they were called, but I remember that protests where a lot of Americans sat down. You know, they sat down on Wall Street or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They all sat down, and a lot more Americans were heading towards the hipsters. You know, because if you look at the hipsters, the amount of cultural impact the hipsters have had, and the reason I say this, oh, Kalala was good, man. The reason I say this is that think about this entire culture on YouTube where people are living in vans, people are living in mobile homes, people are building small houses and all that. If you look at it, a lot of that stems from the hipsters. You know what I'm saying? The hipsters were the people that were saying, yo, man, you can only invest in and you can only trust the past. You know what I'm saying? You can't really trust the present. And the hipsters really moved towards downsizing and completely looking away from the American dream. You know, the house, the big house, the fence. Because a lot of the hipsters started realizing that the house, the fence, you know, the American dream, especially after the war in Iraq, what was left of the American dream when the national aspect of being American was now being all about tribalism. You know what I'm saying? You're either Democrat or Republican. Like think about it. And I used to watch the Daily Show with Jon Stewart. I used to watch the Daily Show with Jon Stewart a lot. You know what I'm saying? And one thing you would see during the Daily Show with Jon Stewart is it became very tribalistic. The Republicans, the Democrats, the Republicans, it wasn't about Americans anymore. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't about who's doing what's right for the American public and is their behavior a positive or good representation of what it means to be American. It just became, well, you're either a Democrat or a Republican. You know what I'm saying? It's not about whether you're an American. And it became, and I started noticing this, is that it really became about, well, you know, I'm a Republican and, you know, I have ideals as a Republican on what can fix and save America. You know what I'm saying? You know, traditionalism, family. Then you have the Democrats, which said, well, you know, as a Democrat, me dreaming about a country where people aren't starving, everyone's being fed, that's what us Democrats want. It wasn't about, well, as an American, this is what I want for my fellow American citizens. Every talking point became about advertising the political party you aligned with. You know what I'm saying? I remember watching a Daily Show with Jon Stewart. And, you know, I wasn't on YouTube heavy like I am today. You know what I'm saying? But I remember watching a Daily Show, and a lot of it became about, well, the party you support determines how much you care for America. the party you support. It wasn't about, well, as an American citizen, I want what's best for my fellow American, and it has nothing to do with me being a Democrat or Republican. It's what I want as an American. You know what I'm saying? It all became about where you stood politically. You know what I'm saying? So it became, well, only the Democrats want, equality for the races. You know what I'm saying? Only the Democrats want equality for the races. Only the Republicans want traditional family values. It really became a, very divisive and, tribal division. You know what I'm saying? Because if you care about your fellow Americans, you're Democratic. You know what I'm saying? But if you care about the nation's safety, its protection, from war and all that, you're a Republican. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, there was never a moment in history where Americans cared about their nation's, welfare or their security. That's not something Americans do. That's something you're either Democrat or Republican. It really became about the political lines. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people started judging you. And let's be honest here, man. We live in a very media dominant talking points, especially during the early 2000s, when a lot of the news we got was, especially from a video outlet, video production perspective, it was from cable networks. It was from very corporate level news stations, CNN, MSNBC, and all that. You know what I'm saying? Once YouTube happened, then we started being able to get news and, information from video, sources. Because once YouTube happened, a lot more video websites happened. You had break.com, Daily Motion, and a lot of sites, Vimeo. You had a lot of alternatives to get your information on video. You know what I'm saying? From these type of websites. But during the 2000s, a lot of it was straight corporate. You know what I'm saying? Straight corporate. Unless you're going on a website, I can't say I was super internet savvy, man. We were, in my household, it was video games and, probably searching the web to watch some anime and stuff. But basically, man, during the 2000s, after the war in Iraq, you had a lot of Americans abandon nationalism because they saw what happened during the war in Iraq. Their family members fought in the war, and when they came back, the country was more focused on destroying the what was left of the middle class, destroying the family values. You know what I'm saying? It really became about destroying it. And then a lot of Americans saw the war in Iraq and said, we got all this technology. You know what I'm saying? We're literally the leaders globally when it comes to military spec ops and all this stuff. We could have easily, you know what I'm saying, had sanctioned sanctioned Iraq. We could have had a lot of things that happened where we investigated what happened, you know, where we investigated the country to find those terrorists, to really find what was going on. And instead, you got to understand that the war in Iraq built on American conspiracies that Americans had during Vietnam, where a lot of Americans were like, yeah, we went to that war to own the land or, strategical war advantages. It wasn't about, bettering the country back home. It was really about alternative ideals, alternative plans to capture and own land or territory. Basically, a lot of Americans look at the war in Vietnam and don't see it as a just war. They don't see a way you can justify that war. You know what I'm saying? That's what happened to a lot of Americans. So they had that pre-built in. A lot of the boomers and Gen Xers that were informed, the Gen Xers that grew up in a household where their boomer father suffered from post-traumatic stress and either was abusive or very militant. You know what I'm saying? They were already prepared when they saw the war in Iraq. You know what I'm saying? They saw this as a replay, a more modern story, a modernization of the war in Vietnam. So, it led to the hipsters and if you look at the hipster movement and what it's done, you can look all over YouTube. Look at Americans living in buses, Americans living in vans, Americans basically abandoning the American dream ideal. That's what the hipsters created. The hipsters more looked more at, the only thing you can control is your interaction with the past. You have absolute high levels of control with your interaction in the past. And look at how nostalgia became a very big selling point. Like think about the value of nostalgia. Now a lot of people look at nostalgia and say, well, that reminds me of when I was younger, what I'm saying, when I was younger and such. But a lot of people don't look at nostalgia and say, well, nostalgia is the safest bet. It's the safest bet, man. Fucking man, I bought this piece of shit. Yeah, nostalgia is a very safe bet, man, because you know what it's about. You know what's coming, and you know what it was about. So nostalgia became a very safe. You know what I'm saying? Very safe. My apologies, man. I bought one of these. Oh shit. My apologies. Damn. Fuck, man. My apologies. Oh man.